music, science. It's the Amoeba People Podcast. Greetings and welcome to the Amoeba People Podcast, the show where science and music collide. Collide's a bit extreme, of course. It's more like science is the peanut butter, music is the jelly, and this podcast is two ever so slightly toasted pieces of bread. My name is Ray Hedgepeth, the singer-guitarist of the irrepressibly nerdy science rock band, the Amoeba People. And man, have we got a great episode for you. Today, it's all about deep time. We're going to be breaking down our song Back to the Beginning, which is one of the most fun songs we do live. And we'll be talking to a living legend. Yes, the one-of-a-kind, the one and only paleo artist, Ray Troll. For any of you out there who either teach geology or paleontology or earth science or are just a fan of all of those things in general, you probably already know Ray Troll. But if you don't, you've probably seen his work and you just didn't realize it was him. His work is both iconic and iconoclastic. That's right, we use the big words in this show. And what I love best about his work is that it is frequently hilarious. I personally am a huge fan, and I'm just stoked that we got the chance to have him on our show. But before we get too deep into the art of deep time, I want to say a quick thank you to all of you out there who are listening to this podcast right now and have been listening to it and have been rating it on Apple Podcasts and writing reviews and sharing it with friends. It is working. People are finding out about our podcast, but we need to keep that up. So we got this idea, like, okay, here's a great way to keep it up. We want you guys, when you review this podcast, you review it any way you like. We're not going to tell you, everybody tells you to pick 5 stars. We're not going to tell you what you need to write or how many stars you need to click. But what we would like you to do is in your review, include a corny science joke. As you know from the first couple episodes, I like to ask scientists their favorite corny jokes. I don't even know why, but I do it, and I seem to do it with every scientist I meet, and because there's so many out there. So if you could leave a review and leave your favorite corny science joke in that review, then we'll read it on the podcast. And so since this is the first one, I'm going to go ahead and tell mine. Okay, usually I'm thinking we'll do this at the end of the episode, but for this one, this being the first one, I'm going to tell mine right at the beginning. Okay, so this comes from a reviewer named Ray Hedgepeth. Oh, that's me, by the way. And here's his corny science joke of the week. What is Snoop Dogg's favorite dinosaur? That would be the velociraptor. And then I leave that nice pause for all your laughter out there. Okay, so let's hear yours. All right, put them in the reviews, and we can't wait to hear from you guys. All right, back to the episode. So deep time is the geologic concept that the Earth is very, very old. And it was first floated by a Scottish scientist in the 1700s named James Hutton. Our modern basic understanding of how geologic forces work is that land is built by volcanic activity, the land gets eroded down, and then the pieces eventually get deposited at the bottom of a lake or a sea where they get compressed and form layers of sedimentary rock. And then that rock gets lifted by more volcanic activity from below to a higher elevation, or sometimes it gets folded and tweaked through heat, and other times it gets exposed by a river carving a canyon like the Grand Canyon. And all of that comes from Hutton. He's the guy who pretty much put these ideas on the map, and that's why he's called the father of modern geology. Now, to us, it might seem obvious that the Earth is very, very old, but not in Hutton's day. It was quite revolutionary. In fact, just 100 years or so before Hutton, a guy named Bishop Ussher had not only calculated what he thought to be the age of the Earth at less than 6,000 years old, he even claimed to know the exact day that the Earth came into existence, October 22nd, 4004 BC, in case you were wondering. Dang, just 2 days off from my birthday. Anyway, Hutton had his work cut out for him, convincing people that the processes he was describing needed millions of years to happen. And in fact, he went so far as to say that geologic forces took so long that there seemed to be no beginning or end to them. So, like a good scientist, he needed to gather observational evidence. And one of the things that he had noticed around Scotland were these geologic features that he called unconformities, where you had layers of sedimentary rock, but then these wild, weird volcanic layers underneath that didn't conform to the nice, normal strata of sedimentary rock. He knew if he could gather more observational evidence of these features, that he would have a very, very strong case for supporting his theory. So in 1788, he asked his friend John Playfair to join him on a journey. We think it might have gone something like this.
John, will ya go to the lowlands, to Salisbury Crags with me? Now, John, will ya go to the lowlands, to Salisbury Crags with me?
James, not again. Another one of your rock hunting trips.
John,
I'm a mathematician.
John,
What?
In song, John!
Oh, for crying out loud. No, James, I won't go to the lowlands.
What?
To Salisbury Crags with thee.
You what?
James, I won't go to the lowlands.
Oh.
My interest in this trip is wee.
Oh, that's terrible, John. That's terrible.
Sorry, let's get in a boat or something. See the coastline, the beautiful,
A boat?
foggy,
Are you
overcast,
daft? Are you mad?
freezing
A boat?
cold Scottish coastline.
Oh.
What do you think?
That sounds terrible. Let's go. Aye, so John and James got on their wee boat and went down to Berwickshire, where indeed they did see the same unconformity that James had seen previously in Salisbury Crags.
James, is this what you were telling me about?
Aye, sure it is, isn't it beautiful?
It's gorgeous, man.
Fascinating.
I'm so surprised that we found this in a boat.
I can't believe it, we found it in our wee boat.
Aye, the mind seems to grow giddy by looking so far into the abyss of time.
Oh, that's quite profound. I have a feeling, John, that one day that'll end up in Wikipedia.
Speaking of which, do you think one day they'll name one of these unconformities after ya?
Oh, John, I mean, I'm modest man such as myself. It's quite a lot to consider.
Guys.
I can't...
Certainly hope.
Guys.
Who's that?
Guys!
What's this?
It's Mr. Jordan of the Amoeba people.
Mr. Jordan!
Hey,
Here he is!
how are you, sir?
This is so ridiculous. You
How
guys.
did he even get here?
Did he get here on a wee time machine boat, perhaps?
These accents
Little
are just
tiny
so
way time machine.
stereotypical. These are ridiculous accents you guys are using right now. It's way over the top.
So
Over.
that's what this is about. Someone's jealous.
You're a wee bit jealous, aren't you, lad?
I think you're jealous.
You
This
cannot
is-
do the Scottish
No.
accents with mastery.
No, it's totally stereotypical. I mean, I've been working on mine. I mean,
There, I hear it. There
wee
it
baby
is.
is going to cry.
He's gonna cry. Oh, no, I feel that. He's
I've
really...
been practicing my Scottish accent for so long, and you guys didn't even invite me to
That's
this
true.
recording.
Actually, he's right, James. We didn't invite him over for the Scottish
I
accent.
came over
true.
just by myself. I was just gonna see what you guys were doing.
You know, if you stay at it, you'll get there one day, lad.
Don't even try that. You
All right,
guys are just.
Mr. Jordan, I've got a solution. I've got it.
What?
Let's all sing a little ditty.
What a great idea.
Let's sing a little song about Salisbury Crags.
That'll make it all
Aye,
better.
Let's do it.
Let's all go down to the lowlands, to Salisbury Crags with me.
With me?
Let's all go down to the lowlands to see Hutton's unconformity. Okay, so we're just going to leave that right there without further comment. On to the music. Back to the beginning, our song about deep time begins with this guitar part, and it's probably our loudest live song, which is why it's so fun to play. What we do is we bring in a second guitar to double that, so they're panned hard left and hard right, and this is what the two of them sound like together. Now, the cool part about this is, as I wrote that part with that glissando part, Dustin, our drummer, he heard that and realized he actually wanted to not echo that, but actually play that with the guitar. So listen to what he does on the fill as I'm coming down with that glissando, what he does on the drums here. So now it's time for our bass player, Ryan Mosley, to come in, and as I'm doing the glissando down on the bottom string, and Dustin's playing every single note on pretty much every single drum he has, Ryan comes in and glissandos, but instead of glissandoing down like I'm doing, he glissandos upward, which I thought was just a brilliant idea, and here's what it sounds like. Okay, so now let's hear all three Meebs together, the double-tracked 2 tracks of the guitar, drums, and bass. Lastly, I want to play for you some background vocals from Ryan Mosley, our bass player. And in this segment, you're going to hear why we in the band refer to him as the Wall of Mose when it comes to stacking all these vocals and creating this incredible multi-vocal sound that he does.
Can you take me back when the earth was newly spinning? Can you take me back to the beginning? Time is marching on and on and on. Time is marching on and on and on.
Oh man, the amazing Wall of Mose. I could just sit here and listen to that all day long. Unfortunately, we don't have all day long because this is just a podcast. But stick around till the end and we're going to play back to the beginning in its entirety with all the pieces together. Full production, great mixing by our friend Alex Dittmore. You're just going to hear the complete version at the end. But before we get into the art of deep time with our guest Ray Troll, here's a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by...
Bad Scottish accents! Are you looking for a way to make yourself sound more interesting at scientific gatherings?
Are you trying to make ordinary, boring words sound more interesting?
Then why don't you try a bad Scottish accent?
Everything's better with a bad Scottish accent, like Thanksgiving.
Pass the gravy, poet, please.
Riding a motorcycle.
I'm trying to make a wee turn here.
Even operating on a patient during surgery.
This needle's gonna put you to sleep, lad. Then I'll cut you open and extract that gangrenous appendix of yours.
So don't delay. Try a
bad Scottish accent today!
In the world of paleo art related to dinosaurs and fossils and landscapes containing dinosaur fossils, one name always pops up in this unique corner of the art world, and that's Ray Troll. It's because his style is so recognizable. You could say it's sort of a mashup of classic nature drawings and 20th century comic book style, along with a healthy dose of the underground comic style of the 1970s. If you've been in a geology course or you've set foot in a natural history museum, there's a good chance you've seen his geologic time scale, or his drawings of dinosaurs, or his hilarious pictures of paleontologists hunting for fossils. And in addition to his paleo art, he's also known for his drawings of fish, particularly salmon, as he's lived in Alaska for most of his adult life. And for you Harry Potter fans out there, Daniel Radcliffe has been known to wear what is likely Ray's most popular shirt, the Spawn Till You Die shirt. He's released a number of books over the years, most notably Cruisin the Fossil Freeway and Cruisin the Fossil Coastline, both of those books in collaboration with Dr. Kirk Johnson, the director of the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. And speaking of the Smithsonian, Ray recently returned from that museum where he was celebrating the opening of the brand new Deep Time Fossil Hall. So the timing seemed perfect for me to talk to him about the deep time of his own life. What a segue, huh? And so I went back to the beginning and asked about his upbringing. He was a military kid, and he grew up all over the place.
The answer to that would be, like I said, grew up in 11 different places. Started out in New York. That's where I was born, in New York, but lived in places like Japan and Puerto Rico. And eventually ended up here in Alaska in 1983. I came up to be a fishmonger. And there's 6 kids in my family, and 4 of us all ended up in Alaska. So we were homeless because we were moving all the time, you know. But like I said, Alaska just got this really cool appeal. And so I landed here. It was kind of a strange thing. If you talk to service brats, you're always like the new person, you know, the new kid. So I'd make friends for 2 or 3 years, and then I'd have to go away and, be the new kid again. But you could also reinvent yourself and be a mysterious new kid in the block, be the cool new kid, or maybe the shy kid. But I don't know. I family of 6 kids, and my passion was drawing pictures, and that was kind of my little refuge in my little room, when I get my own little space. So my earliest memories are of drawing dinosaurs with crayons. And here I am, 65 years old, and I'm still drawing dinosaurs with crayons. So
when I heard that, I was just like, oh my gosh, that just totally reminds me of the Tom Waits song, I Don't Want to Grow Up. And that line where he says, some folks turn into things they'd never want. The only thing is to live for today. Imagine being able to look back and say, you know what? When I was young, all I wanted to do was draw dinosaurs and look back on my life. And hey, that's what I've been doing. That is inspiring. So I wanted to know about this deep time fossil haul that his friend Kirk Johnson was involved with, and of course Ray was involved with as well. But also too, just I wanted to go back and just see like how the two of them met and how that whole process kind of got put into motion.
Began to work on book projects and build things around book projects. I've always, loved books. And wanted to produce my own books, and began to, I'm an ambitious guy. I really was determined to make a living in the arts one way or the other. And shameless self-promotion. You got to do it, man. Otherwise, you won't get noticed. But I wanted to do books, and I did. My first book was called Shocking Fish Tales, and that was a book with an author by the name of Brad Matson. Writes wonderful books, and we were a date, kind of a blind date put together by an editor, and we did our first book, Shocking Fish Tales, in 1991. And then I said, well, Brad, we had such a wonderful time working on the book. Let's do a second book, and let's maybe have that one be sort of a bigger concept book. And we did a book that was called Planet Ocean, Dancing to the Fossil Record. And we pitched that book to 10 Speed Press down in California, Berkeley, California. They liked the idea. And there's a couple of guys basically kind of thinking about things like deep time. And it was in the summer of 1992 that we started our adventure there. We basically started out in Alaska and together, and we had a big road trip. And on that road trip, we stopped in fossil sites all along the way back to Kansas and then back up to Alaska, and did this big loop. But we went to the Burgess Shale, and that was one of our first stops, the Burgess Shale in British Columbia, because we had just finished, both of us had read Stephen Jay Gould's book,
Wonderful Life, yeah.
Yeah. And our minds were blown by that, by what Stephen was really pushing with that. If you replay the tape of life, the great tape, would we end up with, with us again? But that Cambrian site in British Columbia, it's almost, it's 500 million years old, 550 some million years old. And that's mind blowing. And of course, the fossil site is up on top of a mountain, and we journeyed back to Kansas, and we did fossil sites all along the way. And then that grew into an exhibit that traveled around the United States. That started out in Seattle, went to the California Academy of Natural Sciences. It went out to the Academy, like I said, in Philadelphia. And then it went to the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And along the way, I met Kirk Johnson. And he and I became buddies in 1993 when the exhibit was in Seattle. He said, we got to bring this exhibit out to Denver. Kirk and I then ran off together. Brad kind of understands it, I guess, that I ran off with an actual scientist. Brad was just a journalist.
So it's like, we made a couple of great books together, but I want to see what life is like with another co-author. It's not you, it's me, and some fossils.
Kirk and I became friends, and we did a book called Cruisin the Fossil Freeway. And then we had a great time doing that. We did a second book, and that one's called Cruisin the Fossil Coastline. And he was at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, first off when I met him. And then halfway through this latest book project, he became the director of the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. And his job was to build the Deep Time Hall. So he basically went out there, destroyed the old hall, shut it down. But then for the last 6 years, they've been working on the deep time hall. And I just got to go out to the hall and celebrate the opening of that.
Now, as artists, the Amoeba people, we've collaborated with scientists, so we have an idea of what that's kind of like. But I wanted him to share with all you guys out there what it's like as an artist. You're not the scientist. You're just kind of helping scientists envision things. What was it like working with people who are involved in the Deep Time Fossil Hall, and how much are you able to just simply share of your own passion?
It's been a long process. It's a huge hall, and they really wanted to take you all the way back in deep time, but also walk you through time, and then also kind of walk you into the future. So it really is trying to get people, first of all, thinking about deep time and just how far back life goes, and then the whole great pageant of life, but then also to walk you into, paleontology has never seemed more relevant than now. I think, we realize that there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from the past. The Earth has been through huge changes all along the way, suffered through 5 major extinctions, and realizing that we're in the middle of the 6th. So all of that is in the hall. And I didn't have any artwork directly in the hall. I did some T-shirts that are for sale out there at the Smithsonian. But I mainly went out to celebrate this great accomplishment that Kirk was able to pull off. He had to do a lot of fundraising and just assemble a massive team to get that job done. And it's a beautiful hall. And I did have my hand in a couple of things, in that a couple of fossils in the hall are there because I was kind of involved in it, So there's a big palm slab from Alaska that's in the exhibit. And I was there when that was discovered and kind of helped orchestrate getting Kirk out and going to that fossil site. And it's a spectacular Eocene age palm slab from Southeast Alaska. And then there was another Eocene horse that was at the Tucson, one of the Dawn horse, the four-toed horses, was at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show. And I was the one that spotted it and knew that it was still available, and kind of contacted Kirk about it. And lo and behold, it ended up in the hall as well. So, but it was also just a great party to be at. So.
Yeah, nothing like a fossil hall party,
Yeah, it's all about the party,
Truer words have rarely been spoken. So next I wanted to ask about 2 of my favorite Ray Troll art pieces, the giant map that he did of the Western United States, the fossil map that came with, or was a companion piece to, Cruisin the Fossil Freeway. And then I also wanted to ask about the iconic geologic timescale drawing that is literally everywhere. I've seen that all over the place. And if you've taken an intro to geology class, odds are you've seen that as well.
That geologic ages drawing, when I did the book with Kirk, the first book, Cruisin the Fossil Freeway, we realized we needed the time scale of some sort just to get people oriented. And I had been out to, in that first trip in '92 when I went out to the fossil fields with Brad Matson, we went to Kansas. And there's these great rock formations out there in Kansas. They're called the Monument Rocks, out in the middle of nowhere, just flat, rolling plains. And then suddenly there are these spires of rock that are there. And I've always thought that those were kind of iconic looking things. It's just this big rock coming out of, but you can see the layers in these rocks. They're Cretaceous age, so it's the remains of the Niobrara Formation. So it's ocean bottom in the middle of Kansas, but it's these big spires. So that was in the back of my brain when I did that drawing for the book. And I realized, I just wanted to have it so that you could look at it at a glance and see all the ages. You could pick apart that geologic age drawing that I did, in that, it doesn't really represent time proportionally, So if you, for instance, the Precambrian is a massive amount of time.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of time. And when I was writing the lyrics to Back to the Beginning, I was reading John McPhee's amazing, 4-volume Annals of the Former World. And in there, he basically lays it out. The Precambrian is 7/8 of Earth's history. And that wound up in the song.
And the Mesozoic is a really long span of time. But I wanted you to be able to look at it. And I wanted to put little fossils, little creatures in each little age so that they'd be recognizable. But I was surprised at how popular that image became. And as Kirk likes to say, I tend to own the geologic ages now, man. I own it.
No joke. I mean, he actually owns the copyright on that drawing, and therefore he owns the geologic timescale.
It's great because it's a teaching tool. And then my band, I realized that I'd done that drawing. It was really popular. And it's in museums and around the world. And I'm pleased. And it's also on a T-shirt and that kind of thing. And we have, magnets and that kind of stuff. But I sat down with my songwriting partner, Russell Wodehouse, and we wrote a song to go with it. And I thought my challenge was to try to do something that was, because kids are sponges, as you know. You can teach them anything, really, It doesn't matter what age. Even, 6-year-olds love polysyllabic Latin, right? They all know Tyrannosaurus Rex. So they can learn their geologic ages. And so we came up with a song that was, melodic. And then now I've been pleased to go into schools and have children singing that song to me. Archean, Proterozoic, Ediacaran, Cambrian explosion. Don't forget the Ordovician. So it's really cool to see it happen like that.
So as we were nearing the end of the interview, I wanted to mention something to him that we'd heard a lot of as we released our album, The Fossil Record, and that is that our artwork for the album cover, which was done by my good friend and bandmate Dustin Jordan, our drummer. He's an incredible artist. He does all of our kind of art design and our look, like the whole Amoeba People look and everything. That's all him. And he did this album cover, and it took him a good long while to get this thing done because it's a masterpiece, right? But the amazing thing is that as we began posting it, comments kept pouring in like, hey, is that a Ray Troll piece? Like, did Ray Troll do your artwork? And it kept happening over and over again. And I think it's because Ray Troll set the tone for this type of artwork. And there's just like no greater compliment to Dustin that he's being compared to Ray Troll. So I asked him about that. Told him about that. And then I also asked him about what are your influences? Like how, it's called the Ray Troll style, but where did the Ray Troll style come from?
And your drummer did that artwork, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. It's very impressive, especially for a drummer. Yeah, you must have a few drummer jokes, But no, that's really, your art. The artwork on your album cover is really spectacular. It's well done. My influences, I grew up in the 60s, and, people say Art Crumb quite a bit, when they look at my stuff, but which is, kind of came later, but, really, Mad Magazine, really, it was a huge influence on me. And so growing up on Air Force bases, I used to go to the base, the BX, the PX, the Post Exchange, and just wait for the next issue to come. And we made our own magazines too, so I started doing that in school and doing little cartoons. But we had a magazine called Crud, in honor of Mad. So we were Crud magazine, and I did little drawings of my friends and the teachers, make fun of the teachers. But then as, I dug deep into my art history books, Hieronymus Bosch, Peter Bruegel, the great masters, Albrecht Dürer, but also the great Time Life books. My mom bought me the Time Life books with these beautiful paintings in them that really imprinted upon me. And one of the artists was Jay Maternus. I don't know if you know Jay's work, but he did the murals that are in the old Smithsonian. And actually, they honored Jay, and they have a couple of his murals in the new Deep Time Hall. They kept some. And Jay did all these great massive murals just full of animals, but, from the Eocene, or he did the great Age of Mammal paintings that just blew my mind as a kid. And I've been lucky enough to meet him now. He's still alive and kicking and doing beautiful work. But then, artists like Charles Knight, he did the murals that are in the Field Museum, the American Museum in the early 1900s. All those dinosaur books that I looked at as kids really blew my mind. So they're influences on me. And and then I went to grad school, and you're always influenced by your professors. So I kind of picked up a little surreal, sort of folky look in grad school, undergrad school. So we're all sponges. Every artist steals, right? But you don't want to directly steal. You want to absorb it all. And then after a while, you get your own style going. So, yeah, mine's a weird amalgamation of all those things. A little bit of Art Crumb, a little bit of Hieronymus Bosch, and a whole lot of Mad Magazine.
Oh, man, Mad Magazine. And, of course, a whole lot of real science as well. So with this variety of influences, R. Crumb to Bruegel to, Mad Magazine, it's no wonder that Ray's work has been described as scientific surrealism. Like, what a great way to describe what he does. And speaking of surreal, it was kind of surreal to be able to interview Ray Troll, because I admire what he does so much, and I admire what he's been able to do in his career. And it's something that the Amoeba people strive for. And when I got a text from him shortly after our interview that said, "We are kindred spirits," there was kind of this feeling like, wow, here's this amazing paleo artist, this kind of legendary dude up in Alaska, up in Ketchikan, Alaska, doing his thing. And he and his wife run this gallery up there, and he's doing his artwork, and he's traveled everywhere looking at fossils. And here I am sitting in a garage. I'm like staring at a banjo right now. I think it's like a 1939 banjo, and a big mess on my desk. And to hear We're Kindred Spirits is the coolest thing in the world. So I asked Ray if he would, of course, do two things: tell us a joke and introduce our song. And of course, being the awesome guy he is, he did both.
Somebody was asking me the other day, what's your favorite dinosaur? And I thought, kingfisher.
I love that joke. I really do, because it's just another reminder that birds are the descendants of dinosaurs. Let's not forget that. Like we look back into deep time, but let's not forget what's right here in front of us. And speaking of what is right here in front of us, it's time for a little music.
Hey there, I'm Alaskan paleo artist Ray Troll, and this is Back to the Beginning by the Amoeba People.
Let's go back to the beginning.
Time. What's it really all about? Is it even something we can know about? How deep can you dig into history? The deeper you go, the deeper the mystery. You can give it a name like Precambrian time, but that's 4 billion years on a very long timeline.
Magma to granite, sandstone to quartzite, limestone to marble, and shale into slate. Can you take me back when the earth was newly spinning? Can you take me back to the beginning? Can you take me back when the earth was newly spinning? Can you take me back to the beginning? Time is marching on and on and on.
No stopping, you just gotta stop it.
Time is marching on and on and on.
Precambrian time, mysterious, primeval, a time of great geologic upheaval. Primitive life in a shifting landscape. Try to comprehend it, it's enough to make you go ape.
Magma to granite, sandstone to quartzite, limestone to marble, and shale into slate. Can you take me back when the earth is still spinning? Can you take me back, 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 back to the beginning? Can you take me back when the earth is still spinning? Can you take me back, 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 back to the beginning? Time is marching on and on and on.
Stop it, stop it, you just can't stop it.
Time is marching on and on and on. When the earth was still spinning, can you take me back, 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 back to the beginning? Time is marching on and on and on.
Stop it, stop it, you just can't stop it.
Time is marching on and on.
From Precambrian to the Paleozoic, from the Mesozoic to the Cenozoic. From Precambrian to the Paleozoic, from the Mesozoic to the Cenozoic. From Precambrian to the Paleozoic, from the Mesozoic to the Cenozoic. From Precambrian to the Paleozoic, from the Mesozoic to the Cenozoic.
Time is marching on and on and on.
No, stop it, you just can't stop it.
Time is marching on and on and on.
Thank you for listening to the Amoeba People podcast, and thank you to our guest, Ray Troll, for being so awesome and for sharing his art and love of science with the world. If you want to support this podcast, you can find us on patreon.com, and you can donate on a monthly basis. Thank you to those of you who have already been doing so. We really, really appreciate that, and that'll help us keep doing this for many, many seasons. Also, you can find us pretty much anywhere on social media. You can contact us and tag us and anything you like. Share this podcast with everybody you know, please, please, please. And if you're going to write a review, please include a corny science joke in your review on Apple Podcasts, and we will pick one and read it on the next episode. In the meantime, do yourself a favor and go buy as many Ray Troll books as you can. I promise you, you will not be disappointed, and you will not be sorry. Hear that? I'm flipping pages again at the microphone. This is my copy of Cruisin the Fossil Freeway right here, and I've got Cruisin the Fossil Coastline in my classroom. I've got his giant map of the western United States up on my wall. Trust me, you won't be sorry. Buy every book you possibly can, Ray Trolls. And if you want to see the Amoeba People live, we will be at Dino Fest at the Natural History Museum of LA County on September 21st and 22nd. Both days we'll be there, and we'll be doing two sets, both days, 12 p.m., 12 noon, and 2 p.m. So come on out to Dino Fest 2019. It's an awesome, awesome event. And lastly, here's the sound of me trying to record this podcast and getting frustrated when my dog barks. Until next time, everybody, onward!